Welcome to Parish and Community. My special guest today is Pastor Bobby Walston, who is at Reliant Church at Crave Coffeehouse. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Angela. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and those who will be joining us online.
Tell me about Reliant. What relationship? I understand that there's a kind of a partnership going between that and Christ Memorial Lutheran Church. What's that relationship like?
Yeah, so the brief history of Reliant is 14 years ago, Pastor Jeff Clater, who's now the senior pastor at Christ Memorial, he started Reliant Church out of his own backyard in South City. He and his wife lived in South City, and they started a young adult ministry in their backyard. They quickly outgrew their backyard, and so they were looking for places to rent. And they moved into St. Stephen's Lutheran Church, which used to be in the Central West End. I think it's an apartment building now. So they rented that space for a few years. And then we moved into the Grandel Theater, which is just north of the Fox Theater, which I think is now called the Dark Room. And so we were in there for a few years, and then it transitioned. And so that's when we moved into Crave Coffeehouse as renters about 7 years ago. And our community just continued to grow. And now this is home for us. But we've always been a congregation that is connected with Christ Memorial Lutheran Church. As you said, we call ourselves a multi-site. And we have intentionally sought to reach people who first and foremost live in the city. So Christ Memorial is in South County. So we want to reach people in the city. And in particular, young adults, young professionals, college students, graduate students. That tends to be the demographic of our people at Reliant. We have a lot of young families now as people just, grow in their seasons of life. And so now we have a lot of really, really young kids as well. But really fully multi-generational congregation that started out of a backyard, and now we're in a coffeehouse church.
As you do. So now on your church's website, I know you're listed as site pastor and mission pastor. There's a head pastor, there's a pastor of discipleship. Tell me what those different roles mean.
Yeah, so as I said, we are a multi-site of Christ Memorial, and so we have multiple staff. So I'm just one of 3 pastors on staff between Christ Memorial and Reliant. I am the site pastor for Reliant Church, so that means my main charge is to care for the people of Reliant and to reach out to the community of SLU, in particular the medical campus, but even the undergrad campus as well, and then of course the neighborhood immediately adjacent to Crave, which is the Gate District West. So we really try to do things that reach out into that community. So we have a senior pastor, as I mentioned. His name is Jeff Clater. He is the gentleman, the pastor who founded Reliant 14 years ago. But 8 years ago, he became the senior pastor at Christ Memorial. And when he became senior pastor at Christ Memorial, that's when I became the pastor at Reliant. And then we have a newer pastor. He's been around for a little over a year. His name is Pastor Paul Dickerson, and he is our discipleship pastor. And he mostly is at our Christ Memorial campus, but we work together. We're all kind of on the same team, and so we share resources and are on mission together. But he is mostly pastoring at our Christ Memorial campus in South County.
What does a discipleship pastor's role look like?
So mostly it has to do with resourcing our people, and that largely happens in community groups. So smaller groups of people that gather together throughout the week, and it's a backbone of our ministry at Reliant. It's a growing ministry at Christ Memorial, and so resourcing those people with studies, with material, helping to really just get the word of God into the hands of our people and help teach and instruct and answer questions where need be, and just developing followers of Jesus Christ in various different ways. It's a little bit of a jack of all trades.
Got it. So now you're part of Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
That's
Can
correct.
you describe the characteristics one might associate with congregations in your church body?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is gospel-centered. So the Lutheran Church we are the original evangelicals, which means of or according to the gospel. And so we really focus on the good news that Jesus Christ came, that he's the Son of God. He came and he lived and he died to forgive our sins and to give us new life in him. That's the good news, totally free. There's nothing that we can do to earn that. He gives it to us as a free gift. And we believe in that, and we trust him, and we have faith in him. So that's really what I hope is the hallmark of our church body. Everything else is kind of window dressing, in my opinion. We are we're an old church body. Of course, we have the guy's name in our title, Luther. So we can't trace our roots back to that German monk who was a key part of the Reformation. But we don't worship Martin Luther. He's not even a patron saint in our church body. But we believe that he helped refocus the church back on the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so you'll see a wide variety of Lutheran churches because we believe that every congregation has autonomy and authority. And so we're part of a synod, which is a really weird word. If I wasn't in the Missouri Synod, I wouldn't know what that word means.
We're starting to use it ourselves, actually.
Are you? Okay, yeah. And it simply means like walking together. So we are in synod, which means we walk together. So there are kind of basics that we agree on and kind of some ground rules that we're going to abide by. But really, every congregation has a lot of autonomy and a lot of authority. That's why a congregation like ours can have a coffee house in it. And that's not a problem because we don't have to abide by a certain set of guidelines. Now, we do have a traditional liturgy that a lot of Lutheran churches, that if you walk into on a Sunday morning, you'll see a traditional liturgy. We call it the divine service. And there's different settings for it. So a lot of Lutheran churches use that, but we also have the freedom and the autonomy to do contemporary services or something in between, which is really what you'll find at Reliant. We're kind of in between a very traditional, either organ-driven or piano-driven worship service and a contemporary service. We have something in the middle. We had some really talented musicians who took our traditional hymnody and rearranged it to modern musical arrangement using guitars and drums. And so that's what our service looks like. So we still hold our Lutheran traditions, but we try to present it in a 21st century modern context.
Gotcha. Now, speaking of Crave Coffee, tell me how that got it started. You talk about the church being in Crave Coffeehouse, but which came first? Was it a church first, or was it a coffee shop first?
Well, the building has always been a Lutheran church ever since it was built in 1868. And I think you might ask me a question about that later. But Crave Coffeehouse came into existence before Reliant came in and took ownership of it. So Reliant now we own Crave, and we walk in partnership with them in ministry. So we share ministry together. We share mission and vision and values with the coffee house. They're technically not our employees, so it's set up as a separate organization. So they are technically not employees of the church, but the church owns the building. We support the coffee house. We walk with them in mission, and we see them as an extension of us throughout the week. So Monday through Friday, when the coffee house is open, we see that as us opening our doors to the community, serving them hopefully some good coffee and good lunch and good breakfast. And allowing them a place to come and just have some respite and peace and study and meet. Again, just a way for the church to reach out into the community by opening our doors in a unique way Monday through Friday. But it came into existence in 2005. That's when the church was converted into the coffee house. And we took ownership of it in March of 2018. So we just celebrated our 3-year anniversary of taking ownership of the space. But yeah, it's a way for us to reach out into the community in a little bit of a unique and different way. I know we're not the only church that has a coffee house, but it fits well for this community.
Sure, yeah, and it's great, and it is a great space. It's a very, I like the setup in there. So it's a very modern space inside what is clearly an old church building, because it even has the stone inscription and the Evangelisch Kirche,
That's right.
whatever.
That's right.
And you mentioned the dates, 1860s, you said?
1868 is the cornerstone. So yeah,
How did it become, do you know anything about the process of it becoming a modern space? Is that when the coffee house got started, or was it in service as a church for longer than that?
Yeah, so it is, believe it or not, it's always been a Lutheran church. So there's always been a Lutheran church that has worshiped in this space since 1868.
Wow.
It's ebbed and flowed, of course, over the course of 150 years. That's going to happen. And so it had kind of reached a pretty low point in the early 2000s. I think membership had declined. And so there was a group of people, some were the few members that were left at, the church is called Christ Lutheran Church. That was the name of the church. So there were some members of Christ Lutheran Church. Our church body's seminary is here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So there were some folks from the seminary who came in on it. There were some other churches in the area who came together and said, what can we do to serve this community well in a different neighborhood? SLU is growing, the neighborhood is transitioning. How can we serve the community in a unique and different way? Because having this very old traditional church building, things need to change. And that's when they came up with the idea of doing a coffee house in 2005. So it was renovated and opened up its doors as Crave Coffeehouse in 2005. Now, while it was a coffee house, it always maintained a worshiping community. So even though they were serving coffee Monday through Friday, on the weekends there was still always a church that met in here.
That's fantastic. What a great story. I love that there's a creative use for old buildings like that, and good to know that it maintained its character all through that time. I'm going to make sure that I get the websites both for Reliant and Crave onto this YouTube video when I post it.
Great.
Pastor Bobby, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, Angela. It's been great. Thank you.